going to show you one way of making hair in Blender. So we're going to use something new. We're going to use these curves, and we're going to use a Bezier curve. Think about this curve as a strand of hair. Scale this down to maybe 0.2. And go ahead, Control A, and I'm going to apply all of my transformations. All right. Now, if we think of this as a strand of hair, we're going to want to start to attach that to the model. So hit Tab, go into Edit Mode, and you can grab these points on the curve and drag them and place them where the hair would come out of the head. All right. Now you see these handlebars on this. If you've worked with Adobe Illustrator or anything like that, you're kind of familiar with those, and they just are there to help control the direction of that curve. See these little segmentations? Those would be like if I were to draw this out and manipulate each of those points on the line, like we did when we were moving the vertices around in the heart tutorial, then that would be a lot of work. But since we have these handlebars, we can just grab that and change all of those at the same time. Now what I'm doing is I'm attempting to get all of my, I want to be able to see this above the surface of the head. So let's say his hair is like this long. These strands are going to be the length of whatever the hair is. All right, so we don't have to do every single hair though. All right, so that looks like that's probably in a good position to start. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to change some of the properties in this strand of hair. So if I come down here to my data properties for my line, and I go and I make sure this is 3D, go down to the geometry section, and our geometry right now is round, which is fine. We're going to increase the depth of that, and we're also going to turn on fill cap. So if I don't turn on fill caps, that's going to be hollow. But if I'm going to 3D print this, that needs to be solid. So I have to turn on my fill caps. All right, and that looks exactly like we want. A giant elbow noodle coming out of his head. Perfect. All right, we're done. No, I'm just kidding. We're not done. So we've got this out here, and it doesn't look like hair yet. Next thing I can do is I can change the radius. So if I go over here to the radius, see I'm in edit mode, right? So I come over here to radius, and I can decrease the radius. Now, if you want to be able to change the radius in the middle someplace, you can always add another point. So if I hit A to select all, so I've got all of my points selected, I go up here to segment, and then subdivide. So essentially what that's telling you is that we're going to take this curve and we want to add one more point to be able to adjust the settings on it, and that just breaks that curve down into more points where you can manipulate it. So now if I want that hair to be thicker here, I can do that. And then now I have the options of editing how the hair looks from this point. And you just edit that until it looks right. Right? It gives you your general shape. I take this, see how this part of it comes out past the head. We want that to intersect with the head, so we're going to pull that back a little bit. We want to make sure that the part of the curve on the inside is touching the head, so that when we go to print it, it is all one piece. Otherwise, your hair will fall off. And nobody wants their hair to fall off. All right, that looks pretty good. But it doesn't really look like hair. It looks like he's got this, plastic snake glued to his face. So let's change that so it looks a little bit more like hair. All right. So what we need to do is we need to change what the bevel looks like. So right now it's just round. If I want to, I can go down here. If I want like a simple, maybe more like you see it a lot in like anime comics. I just want like a simple anime comic style hair. A lot of times that's just like really rectangular or square on the bevel. And so if I go from round to profile, you'll see that it went ahead and made that into kind of a square. And if I come down here, I can see this is my profile, and I can kind of change the way that looks. So I can add more points to it, give it some waves. Like that. Down here, you'll notice that for each one of these points, there's some different things that you can do. So if I want to make that more, like I want to take these points and make them so that I can, just like I do with a curve, change those handles and change the way that the curves look, or how many of them there are. I can do that in there. Right, and that's going to start giving that some shape that's more like what we'd expect from hair, right? And so the more of these points you put in there, then the more control you're going to have over what your hair looks like. And typically I would make my points that are low sharp. So this is a sharp point here. And then I'd make my points that are high more rounded. And adjust these settings and mess around with it until I got something that looks right. I don't know what happened there. You can also use the tilt function. So I would mess with this until I got something that I like. You mess with the tilt function. So if it's not looking quite right, sometimes if you like rotate it using the tilt option, you can get it to where it's looking a lot more like you want it. And you can do all the points at once, or you can do, you know, some of the points. And just like everything, it's going to be, when it looks right, you'll know, but also it's going to depend on, the things that are around it. So if I adjust this rotation here using the tilt, it's going to change the things that are around it. So, maybe now that area looks wrong. So then maybe I might have to go in here and, adjust this up, over, whatever. And as I do that, then of course, things around that area are going to change. So I'll need to make adjustments to those areas until I got the whole thing looking, how I want it to look. All right. And that's how I would do air. If you end up with these little areas where you have creases, sometimes adjusting the resolution here, that is going to adjust the resolution on your level. So you'll get more of these that you put in. I don't know how I want to make that, but depends on how strandy you want his hair to look, I guess. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. But you'll notice that the crease that I had went away when I did that. You can also increase the resolution up here. if your hair is looking too blocky, you come up here to the 3D, the shape, the 3D part of it here, and increase your resolution. I would stop if you get to 16. Still not looking right. You did change some other stuff, but the higher the resolution. All right. So ultimately, what we're going to do, and here's you want to keep your resolutions low when you can. So ultimately, what you might end up doing is you'd end up converting this over to a mesh. So I'm going to right click on it, convert to mesh. Once you do this, you're not going to be able to edit with the those tabs anymore, but you can do modifiers on it. So if it's not as round as I want, I can try to use a subdivision surface modifier, and now it looks a lot more curved. So without it, with. I'll zoom in so you can see. So here we've got these little areas that are sharp, and if we turn that on, now that's nice and smooth all the way through. Let me turn this back up. All right. And then to do the rest of the hair, I would kind of continue to do that. But the nice thing about this is that I don't have to redo all these settings each time. I can select that curve, hit Control C to copy and Control V to paste. then click on my object and I can move that a little bit. Tab into editing mode, select my points, and move those around so that they start to fill in the rest of the hair. And then you just do that as much as you need until it looks like what you need it to look like. All right. And then you continue filling out the rest of the hair that you're going to have on the head. You can make these a lot shorter for shorter hair. You can make them longer for longer hair. That is not the only way to do hair, but it is for hair that is long. It's generally speaking one of the easier methods to fill out that hair. And this is for if you're going to do 3D modeling with the intention of printing stuff. So if you're going to do it with the idea that you're going to render this and you want something that looks more realistic, this isn't really the way to go. But for a something that you're going to be 3D printing, you want these to be solid. You can't have a bunch of little teeny tiny strands because they won't print. But something like this, where it's more solid, will absolutely print. Anyway, I'm not going to go ahead and go through all of this to finish out filling in the hair. Make sure that you save your file. So you can either hit save there, or if you want, hit Control S on your keyboard. So there you go. You have one way to make hair in Blender. Now, if you have a different hair type that you want on your character, or if you have a specific kind of hair that you want that you can't figure out how to do with this, please make sure and ask, and I'll be glad to help. All right. Good luck. Have fun.